Hello, football fans, and welcome to another edition of the ONETA Football Show brought to you by PT Creative. As always, I am your host, Evan Davies, and it's nice to see you all here live on the internet, as we are. Today, topic, it's kind of that weird space. This is being released right before the NFL Combine, so it's that weird space where free agency's ramping up, but we're not really having all our answers yet. And draft analysis for me has really just started. Although I do have a decent knowledge of a few players at this point, I'm not fully ready to go full draft analysis yet. So we're gonna go free agency and franchise tag preview. That's gonna be today's topic on the show, and that is where we will begin today. So I hope you are ready for some free agents and franchise tag preview. I'm gonna try to do it a little bit differently. So I'm gonna start with our tag players and go from here. So if you're on the video portion, let's take you right to it. So tag players, number one, there is now reports of a lot of different players being reported, but these are more impact players that are definitely have been discussed at this point with the initial combine interviews coming out, and are very, very interesting cases to be in. Number one is T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. I really like T. Higgins coming out of college. I was very, very happy to get my draft evaluation of him proven correctly. Especially helps when you've got a quarterback like Joe Burrow throwing you the ball. But T. Higgins is an impact player, one of the best jump ball receivers you're going to see in the National Football League. Great frame, good size. He does have number one receiver traits. He's just always overshadowed because he is with one of the few guys in the NFL that is a true blue number one, can't be questioned, with Jamar Chase. T. Higgins has already been confirmed to get the franchise tag through Cincinnati. There's not a lot to talk about other than that. Two first-round picks from a tag perspective would be kind of insane for T. Higgins, but I got to admit, it could be tempting for somebody to try it. I just don't think it's worthwhile for that price tag for T. Higgins. I started with the confirms because I want to go into this. There are three different tags a player can get, two of which are the franchise tag, one is the transition tag. If you don't know what the franchise tag is, there's two different versions, the exclusive tag and the non-exclusive tag. When you franchise tag a player, it does not guarantee that he's going to play for you. There still is the option that they can go out and find a deal, so to speak, in some cases. So the exclusive tag is that player is exclusively yours. It's an average. Their salary jumps to the top five of the position or 120% of their previous salary from the past year for both of those. So if T. Higgins is going to be making top five receiver money based off of last year's wide receiver contracts, which is a hefty, hefty sum for T. Higgins. I definitely understand why they want to keep him, but I did think he might squeeze through the cracks because you have Jamar Chase deal coming up, and of the two, I think, although you never want to lose a T. Higgins, I think Jamar Chase is a little bit more valuable in the offense. The second is the non-exclusive tag. The player gets the average of the top five salaries of the last 5 years, or 120% of their previous salary. And if you like to trade for this player, it's 2 firsts if the player signs elsewhere. So with the non-exclusive tag, they can go find a deal wherever they so choose. But if they go about and say, okay, the team's willing to trade for me, they're automatically going to send 2 first-round picks. So it's a vestige to try to keep players where they are. Like I said, T. Higgins is an exclusive tag player, but it's an interesting case nonetheless because he's the only confirmed player at this point to get the franchise tag. Now, second on our list for me is actually Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman Jr. to be specific. Michael Pittman Jr. I really like Michael Pittman Jr. He's in a similar case of T. Higgins where I think he's a 1A, not necessarily a 1, but he's a very, very talented and good receiver who's going to get paid. Reports as of today, right before recording, was that he's going to get tagged or he's getting an extension. If you look at the Colts room without Michael Pittman Jr. at the wide receiver position, it's pitiful. It's kind of Michael Pittman Jr. and nothing else. There are people that believe in Alec Pierce. I am not one of them. I'm not saying he can't be good or talented, but he is not a difference maker in the NFL level, in my opinion. Michael Pittman Jr. is the only one that really is. The reason I brought Pittman up for that is it was always looking like once T. Higgins got the tag that Pittman was going to be the guy on the market who was going to get paid. It doesn't look like it's going to be like that as much due to a free agency market, but he's going to get paid through the Colts for him, and good on that player for getting that. Player number 3 on this for me here, Antoine Winfield Jr. Another one of those guys that all 3 of the guys that I have listed, ironically, I loved coming out of college. That 2020 draft I did with the secondary players, maybe not through the first round, but I'd have to go look at my records to see who was a hit and who was a miss from that 2020 draft. But Antoine Winfield Jr. is one of my favorite players coming out in that draft. I loved Michael Pittman, and I loved T. Higgins coming in the draft. Antoine Winfield Jr. is an all-pro safety for a reason. He's a difference maker. If it is not for Antoine Winfield Jr., that entire defense collapses in multiple times in Tampa Bay. I adore Antoine Winfield Jr., and the Bucs are a really interesting case because they have a lot of key free agents that are going to hit the market in some way, shape, or form, and I don't know if their cap is going to allow them to really keep all of them. I'm going to look it up currently for you just so I can get you the number, but you're looking at a team who we're going to discuss later on with their free agents. Not only do they have Antoine Winfield Jr. coming up, but they also have Baker Mayfield's going hitting the market. Mike Evans is hitting the market. Devin White's hitting the market. Lavonte David's hitting the market. So currently, as the cap stands, they have $43.6 million worth of cap. But that goes quickly when you're going to franchise tag a safety or sign a safety in Antoine Winfield Jr., who's going to hit double digits. You have to pay Baker Mayfield if you want to keep him, so that's going to be at least $30+ million, if not 40, because that's the going market rate for the quarterback position. Then you got to try to find Mike Evans and Devin White, so you can't pay everybody. Plus, you need enough room to sign your rookie class and then sign. Every team does free agents in some way, shape, or form. Whether they're very minimal free agent signings from a cap perspective, or they're very large, big splash signings that we all love to see. Teams need that cap money, so that cap is going to go quickly. Obviously, they can restructure contracts and do things of that nature, but they're not going to be able to keep all of those players available for themselves. So I would really want to see what Antoine Winfield's going to do with this. It's reported he's going to get the tag, and he certainly deserves to stay in Tampa because he's a phenomenal player. Selfishly, he's one of those guys I wish could sneak out and get to a team that I adore a little bit more because I'd love to have an Antoine Winfield Jr. on any team that I. Next up, you got Brian Burns, the edge player out of Carolina. Now, Brian Burns is an absolute difference maker. He's one of the few difference makers the Panthers have. They currently have $34.5 million worth of cap. He's going to get paid. This is the easiest one, but I want to talk about it because the edge position, the 3 biggest positions to get paid in the National Football League are quarterback, tackle, and the edge, defensive end as it used to be called, but now it's just edge because of how many times you have off-ball linebackers and outside linebackers rushing the passer. It's an edge player. So with that, you have to look at the cap room. Carolina is bereft of talent. Bereft of talent. I had a huge grade on Bryce Young coming out in the draft. I understand there's a lot of Bryce Young doubters out there. I'm not ready to say he's done yet, as you would know if you've listened to my previous quarterback rankings. But with that being said, though, you can't lose talent when you have a team this young at key positions not performing. You need to get as much talent as possible to help those players learn, grow, and get better. If you learn, even though it's not on the offensive side of the ball, if you lose a difference maker like a Brian Burns, you're done in Carolina. And Dave Canales is not going to have a fun time in his first year as the head coach. So Brian Burns is going to get paid. But I wanted to talk about this one because Carolina's situation is a little bit stickier than I think people believe. It's not nearly as bad. You can obviously restructure other deals, but Brian Burns is a player that needs to get paid. He's a difference maker. So you got to watch out for that in Carolina, but that's another reason why I bring it up. And my final tag player This is a very interesting case. It's L'Jarius Sneed, the corner for Kansas City, who should be the All-Pro. Did he not make a Pro Bowl? He made the All-Pro. I think that's how it went. But L'Jarius Sneed is a phenomenal cornerback in the National Football League. In his career, I believe it was 10 interceptions, 40 passes defended. He was a major key contributor on that defensive side of the ball for the Kansas City Chiefs in that Super Bowl 58 win. L'Jarius Sneed was locking people down, and San Francisco was doing pretty much nothing against L'Jarius Sneed. What's interesting most about L'Jarius Sneed is he has to compete with the fact that one of the best players in franchise history is also due a giant payday in Chris Jones. So Kansas City's already reported that they are open to trading him or tagging him. He has been granted permission to seek a trade, but I got to tell you though, like, they're going to tag and trade him. That's fair with an exclusive rights deal. He's going to bring back a good return. It's just how much return is he going to get? With the jump in the salary cap, what looked like to be an impossible situation looks slightly more possible, but it would take a lot of restructuring, hometown discount, stuff of that nature. Kansas City now has $21.1 million on the cap after releasing Marquez Valdes-Scantling. This just today, I believe, was when it was announced he was going to be released today. So now they're up to $21.1 million. That's still not enough to sign one of these guys straight up. So you're going to still have to restructure. It still just looks like it's going to be the impossible, but it's a little bit more doable with how much the cap jumped to try to keep both L'Jarius Sneed and Chris Jones. But these are the interesting things with these franchise tags is you got to look into what your trade conditions could be. Or the other side of that is what really are your financial ramifications over the next couple of years for franchise tagging that player going forth. A lot of people think, it's just a one-year thing. It is a one-year Band-Aid for a lot of the time. But that doesn't mean there are not other cap casualties that happen, because that deal with the franchise tag then impacts the other players that get paid on your team. Or it delays other players getting rewarded. And guess what? Kansas City's got a lot of people that need to be rewarded for the job they just did in winning Super Bowls 57 and 58. And so that's the thing that's very interesting when it comes to these guys. But those are the 5 players on a tag that are very, very important. There's a whole list of about 15 to 20 high-end players. They get the tag, but those are the 5 that are most impactful right here and now as we're about to hit the true free agency period in about 2 weeks. Now, before I go into the free agency stories that I wanted to hit, I got to offer you a deal, just like these players are going to be offered a deal. So, come on over to the Etsy shop. Head on over to ptcreative.etsy.com. Put in the promo code BLISS at checkout anytime you have an order of 2 items or more and get 20% off your total order. Now, before you just go, I've seen this ad before. What is this? You have Pokemon, but this is football. I finally got some football stuff up on the Etsy shop. So this is your choose stuff. This top row here under all items, those are all new football themed stickers and t-shirts. So we're going to go over the football section. You can get yourself a Nobody Likes Us Cowboys sticker, the Philly Dumpster Fire sticker, which, yes, hits home for me because I unfortunately still live in Philadelphia. So here we are, Philly. Go Birds, even though it's like that. You have your sticker, and I do not have the sticker in here yet. I need to get that, but I have the sticker and the t-shirt version of Cheese, Beer, and Love number 10, our Packer Wisconsin Pride t-shirt. Those are all available on the Etsy shop. So once again, go to our Etsy shop, ptcreative.etsy.com. Use the promo code BLISS up until March 13th, and you're going to get 20% off any order of 2 items or more at checkout. Use the promo code BLISS. But with that being said, thank you for doing that. If you do that, we really appreciate it. And tell me what you like and tell me what you don't like, and I'd love to try to work with you and get something that you do. Let's move on to some interesting free agents. What I'm going to be doing here, I'm not going to be talking about the biggest storyline theoretically because it's a major quarterback, and that's Kirk Cousins, because everyone's going to talk about Kirk Cousins. So I've lined up 10 storylines through free agents that I think are very unique and not necessarily very unique, but things I feel you need to talk about going forward and players that need to be discussed as their boom or bust or there's something about them that needs to be discussed for free agency. So if you're in the video component, here's what you're going to be seeing. Number one, for me, it's Baker Mayfield. Mayfield represents what is utterly clear in the National Football League. He is one of the few of the eroding middle-class quarterbacks. As much as you want to say guys like Baker Mayfield can't win a Super Bowl, even if they are playing as well as they did, there are 32 teams that need to fill out a roster that are all trying to do their best to win a Super Bowl. Tampa has talent. But what does Baker Mayfield possibly returning to Tampa say about what they're trying to do? Plus, you have to pay a pretty exorbitant price to get Baker Mayfield as your starting quarterback. I wanted to highlight Baker for a big, big reason beyond the middle class of quarterbacks that I kind of just did a preamble for in this. What does signing Baker Mayfield back to Tampa say about Tampa? They were clear and away, in my opinion, the most talented and best team in the NFC South. Because the Falcons, all due respect to them with the offensive weapons that they have, never had a quarterback to execute, which automatically takes your team down a lot. Defense that couldn't handle a lot of things, and just you didn't come through. And there was poor coaching, in my opinion, in Atlanta last year. Where Tampa was kind of underachieving in some ways, but then they had an overachieving quarterback that allowed their more talented players to shine, such as a Mike Evans, such as a Chris Godwin, and all the other players that are there. So you got to think about it from that standpoint. But one thing that's happening is you're seeing the end of, not a dynasty, because Tampa was never a dynasty, but you're seeing the end of kind of a kingdom of the Tom Brady era of the Bucs. Where at the end of Jameis Winston, everyone knew this was a super talented team that was a quarterback away from being a real contender. They got that quarterback. They won a Super Bowl. They went back to another, and they went back to 2 more playoffs with Tom Brady, and were competitive. And then they got Baker Mayfield, and everyone went, here's the downhill, it's done. And Baker went out and showed, no, I can go out and I can win playoff games, and I can be a good quarterback on a consistent basis and elevate the team. But like I said, I just highlighted it. Currently, Tampa's got like $22 million in cap room. Or no, $48 million in cap room. But if you sign Baker Mayfield, the vast majority of that is gone. Let's say it's for 2 or 3 years. It's going to probably be for a 3-year contract if you sign Baker. Which means a lot of those players that are still there but are on the fence about leaving in some way, shape, or form due to their free agency contract status, it's time that that era goes away. So does Tampa try to stick on for another 1 or 2 and string it along with these players like a Levante David, like a Mike Evans, and pay a young player like Antoine Winfield Jr. as well? Or do they try to go elsewhere and press the reset button and say, we understand what Baker did for us, but we're looking at the future and we don't know if Baker can be the guy for the future? I think he deserves to stay in Tampa. I thought he played really well, and right now, Tampa's not in striking distance to get a quarterback at a high level. They are not in a position to pay top dollar and keep the pieces around it to sign someone like a Kirk Cousins. And Baker is not that much of a downgrade from Kirk Cousins. So where do you go, really? So do you want to be in no man's land and press the reset button and reset your cap over the next year or 2, get ready for the next run of your team? Or do you want to keep trying to be in the race and competitive, especially take advantage of the fact that you're in a weak division right now? Atlanta still hasn't proven anything. The Saints are constantly eroding with Dennis Allen as their coach. And Carolina looks dead in the water every time they even say the word beach. Like, they have no idea what they're doing. So you got, do you take advantage of that? I would personally probably advocate re-sign Baker, but it's an interesting thing to think. We're going to stay in Tampa. We're going to Mike Evans. Here's the thing. I think Tampa wants to re-sign him. I'm hearing reports that they want to re-sign him, but does Mike Evans want to stay in Tampa? A realistic expectation. As we just said, as part of the preamble to the Baker Mayfield conversation. Can Tampa win a Super Bowl with its current roster? In my opinion, no. I don't think they have the consistent firepower to score as many points to keep up with bigger teams in the NFC. I'm looking at teams like the Rams, the Lions, the 49ers, the Eagles if they were to get together. Even though the Buccaneers did beat the Packers late on, I don't think the last couple week Packers team would even have a problem beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So those are young teams that are going to get big firepower on them, some of those teams. So I don't think they have the firepower to keep up with teams like that on a consistent basis and have a defensive structure that's going to keep those teams from a lot of points. So is Mike Evans going to win a Super Bowl in Tampa towards the end of his career? I do not believe so. So to me, this comes down to what always free agency comes down to for aging players that still have a lot to give, but are going to be a high cap hit for their team. And that is simple. Do you care about championships or do you care about the money? Now, sit with that for a second. So as I just said, it's rings or money a lot of the time for these guys. And people can say, well, why can't they have both? They can in some way, shape, or form, but you have to find the right team to do it. Would it behoove somebody like Mike Evans, let's say that with the expanded salary cap that Kansas City just made with MVS and a couple little magic tweaks to a Mahomes contract, a Kelsey contract, other high-end guys in their team. What if Mike Evans takes $7 million to go play in Kansas City and try to win a Super Bowl? Is that better or worse than getting $11 or $12 million possibly from the hometown team, but knowing you're probably not going to win a Super Bowl? And I know that's a huge difference in money. I totally get that. I don't want to be one of those guys that's in a media that's going, millions of dollars for millions of dollars. Like, no. We're talking generational wealth in a lot of people's cases that their money, that families of theirs have never seen when we talk about the difference between $6-7 million or $12 to $13 million. That's a lot of money, especially in the state of Florida where there's no state income tax. However, you've won one Super Bowl, and you're still kind of looked at sort of as a fringe Hall of Fame player in some people's eyes. Do you want to go ring hunting and go sign with a Kansas City? You want to go sign in Baltimore possibly if Baltimore will go take him and give another piece of the puzzle to beat the Chiefs. You want to go up to Buffalo, go play in Buffalo and try to get them there. I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but you could take a lower money and go try to win a ring. What's more important to you? And this is not meant to question the character of Mike Evans. It's simply he, in my mind, best fits the idea, along with one other player I'm going to talk about, of what's more important to you at this stage of your career. Is it legacy and winning championships, or is it cashing in it one more time on a big contract? Because at this point, for many, many players in the NFL, once they get to this stage of their career, you can't do both for the most part. You got to do one or the other. Or you may get a 1-year big deal, and then you're kind of shot after that. So where do you go? That's what I think is interesting about Mike Evans' situation. And everyone wants him to stay in Tampa because we all romanticize, I am definitely one of the people that does, playing with one team for your entire career. I think that's great when a player can do that, but you can't just do that to do it. There's got to be a reason to stay. So what does Mike Evans think? That's the question there. Finally, we've been talking a lot of Tampa, and I didn't intend on this being Tampa, but another one right here, it's Devin White. Sorry for the grainy photo. I'm just seeing it being pretty grainy. Devin White is a really confounding case of a player. I loved him coming out in the draft, but I thought he would develop a little bit more. He just has not developed as a run defender. But he's a great tackler. He always is very high on NFL lists as a tackler. And he's a very, very good pass rusher and is starting to get a little bit better in pass defense. But clearly, he had a lot of issues with Todd Bowles not trusting him to be a significant player on their team, and he was voted a captain. And still, it was just like, no, we can't trust you to do the basics. So he's a really interesting case. He's one of those guys that has a name, has a skill set that has some flash to it, appears from time to time as, whoa, he's really turning the corner, but consistency is a huge problem. These guys always get paid, and those stories always go year to year, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, you know, every team has one of those, oh my God, we paid this guy so much money, and then he just did nothing while he was here because he's being asked to do something that he's not capable of doing, and he's being paid to do something. They're thinking he can be, the team that's paying him thinks he can do X, Y, and Z when he can only do X. So that's the case. What does an off ball linebacker such as Devin White make in a market like this? That's the really interesting thing for me. Um, I definitely think Devin White is not going to be in Tampa. I think he's kind of already buried himself in the doghouse there. But where does he go, and how much money does he have? Especially as we've seen the linebacker position play a bigger role than it has in the last couple of years with the Fred Warners, with the Dre Greenlaws, with the Patrick Queen and Roquan Smiths of the world. Tampa showed it with Levante David and Devin White to a degree. The linebackers position is important, especially with how many crossing shallow and intermediate routes are being used to carve up defenses. You need good linebacker play to help defend that. So where does he go, and how much does he get paid? I think that's a really interesting storyline to watch as you go into free agency. Now we're finally off of Tampa, but we're staying in red and we're staying in Kansas City. It's the man who probably deserves the most payday out of anybody, and that's Chris Jones. Chris Jones is a guy I know everyone's talking a lot about Kansas City right now because they just won a Super Bowl. They're in the midst of a dynasty. They have the greatest player to ever play his position. Yes, I said it. I meant it. I do not care. And I say it every week, so I don't know why it's shocking at this point. But Chris Jones is going to get paid one way or another. I think they've already shown you with the L'Jarius Sneed moves that they're making, allowing him to seek a trade, saying they'll tag him and trade him if they have to, and both sides are open to that. Releasing MVS from his contract, which I'm not saying MVS was a huge difference maker. He's most famous this past year, although he did catch the first touchdown for Kansas City in the Super Bowl. He also dropped a lot of balls this year that he should not have dropped, which was also his problem in Green Bay. So it's not as if he made a great case to stay either. It's $10 to $12 million of cap room that they saved this year. It was a smart move for them to move on from MVS. So I think they've already shown you Chris Jones is going to stay in Kansas City. The question is, how much is Chris Jones going to demand in a contract? He's going to get more than Aaron Donald. So, and that's just market, right? That's not necessarily to say he's better than Aaron Donald in the lineage of football. But where does he go, and how much does he get paid? I think he stays right in Kansas City. The question is, how much is he going to take? And does he take a hometown discount, kind of like Patrick Mahomes? Or does he kind of get together with the team and say, okay, I want to be paid. I want to be paid commensurate to my abilities. I want to be paid really well in the market, but I'm not going to squeeze the extra couple $1 million out of this that I could because I want to stay here and make history. So that's a big deal to think about. I think Kansas City's already told you Chris Jones is the priority, but that's the most interesting when you think about keeping your own players and keeping your impact players. There are the three most impactful players of the Kansas City Chiefs for the past 5 years, or really since the Mahomes era started with the dynasty. It's Patrick Mahomes, it's Travis Kelce, and it's Chris Jones. Even when everyone thought Kansas City couldn't play defense, everybody knew Chris Jones could play defense. He's already made himself a case. He's already made himself a case to be a Hall of Famer. In my mind, he is a Hall of Famer. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion. And he was an impact player every single AFC Championship game and every single Super Bowl that he was in. So, Super Bowl win, I should say. So, what do you do with that? I think Chris Jones is going to stay in Kansas City. The question is, how much is he going to get paid? Moving forward, we go to the running back mark. We go Saquon Barkley. From a talent and player perspective, one of the sexiest players on the market, talent-wise and impact-wise. But it's the running back market, and they already showed in New York he's not going to get tagged. So I kind of led with Saquon. But you have Josh Jacobs, not going to get tagged. Tony Pollard, not going to get tagged reportedly either. Saquon Barkley, not going to get tagged. And I think it's time for Saquon to leave New York. I don't think he's going to get paid in New York, nor do I think it's worthwhile for him to stay in New York, even if he does get paid, because he's already lost a significant amount of time in his career to injury. When he's not injured, he is shown to be an impact player. But with Saquon, he's playing in, if someone wants to say undervalued, one of the more undervalued positions in all of football. And although he's extremely good, it showed that you couldn't build a team in the NFL anymore around the running back position. You got to do it around the quarterback position. So he needs to go find the team that's going to put him in the best place to succeed. Can he get a CMC style deal like San Francisco gave Christian McCaffrey? Or is he going to go elsewhere? And where is he going to go elsewhere? I truly have no idea who's. I saw the Texans rumored, or the Texans have the best odds at this point to sign Saquon Barkley. I think that'd be really smart if Houston could do that. I just don't know where in the hell he's going to end up if he does leave. But it's a very, very interesting case because you're going to get an immediate impact player as long as the health stays through for your team. He's definitely one of those players that every knowledgeable fan would say, I don't think we need Saquon Barkley. But if you're the team, if you're a fan of the team that signs him, you're not going to be truly upset. Unless you lose some major piece because of it, because you know you're getting a very, very high-end talented player in Saquon Barkley. Impact player in both the running and passing game. Has multi-uses throughout an offense. You know he's going to be a good player. So that's the key. And I think Saquon's kind of the dictator of the running back market. He's now in that stage where this is where you go. Does he have 2 more really good years left? Does he have 3 more really good years left? You know, people would love to cross their fingers and say he's got 5 more good years left. But that's the question. Does he? You know, because it's the running back position. It's such a crapshoot, unfortunately. And now you can find great running backs late in the draft, like an Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th, or undrafted players, and do really well with undrafted running backs. So it's the hard part that comes with it. You know, look at Miami. All of their running backs are undrafted or 7th round picks, I believe. So, it's kind of crazy how that works. So the running back position in general, which is highlighted by Saquon in my mind, is going to be a difficult one here. We'll stay on running backs. This one is, again, the mix of the running back market and then what I brought up with Mike Evans. It's Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry at this point in his career and at this point in the NFL, he can't be the focal point of an offense. He can't be the focal point of an offense. And you can't build around the running back in today's NFL. You just can't. Case in point, look at what Pittsburgh tried to do with Najee Harris and, oh my God, is it Jalen Ward, I believe? As their running back tandem, they're a good tandem. And look where Pittsburgh is. No man's land because they don't have a quarterback because Kenny Pickett's not good. Derrick Henry was alone in Tennessee with no other functional offensive player besides maybe Peter Skoronski. And Will Levis possibly. So, he's going. He's not going to stay in Tennessee. He's going. To me, Derrick Henry is the most clear-cut. He's going to go hunt rings. My concern is Derrick Henry might make the choice to try to get one final payday, which you can never fault the guy for because this is his livelihood. This is his family's future. This is his family's generational future, is his football career. And you never want to take that away in this decision. But is Derrick Henry going to go down as kind of the, I don't know, Eric Dickerson of this era, where everyone knows, wow, what a running back, what a stud he was, oh my God. But then the big thing is, never played on a big-time team that really made a push for a Super Bowl. All due respect to that Titans team that was a number 1 or a number 2 seed, I believe. I felt in my mind, like everybody else did, there was no way they were going into Kansas City and beating Kansas City. Titan fans can say, oh, they had a lead. You can believe that all you want. Patrick Mahomes was on the field, and he tore you up and took it away from you in a heartbeat. And that's no disrespect to Titans fans. It's just the reality of playing Patrick Mahomes. But outside of that, the Titans have never been a true factor to actually go try to play and win a Super Bowl in the Derrick Henry era. So where does he go? Does he take a heavy, heavy discount to go play in a place like Buffalo, who needs a running attack? I still think Derrick Henry has a year or two of tread on the tires, because I thought he's been done for the last 2 years and he keeps proving me wrong. And if he's not the focal point that has to constantly carry the load, and he takes a little bit of the weight and the edge off of his career and is balanced by others, I think that's going to go a long way into preserving him for maybe a year or two. And he's the one player at the running back position that you keep counting out in my mind, and yet it still works. So that's the big question here for Derrick Henry. Is he going to go ring shopping, or is he going to go shopping with that bag? I think he needs to go chase the ring because he doesn't have one. Where Mike Evans at least can think about taking the bag because he already won one. But it's a big thing in free agency with these older players nearing the ends of their careers, but still have tread left on the tire. Now, I'm going to take it to the offensive line. Tyron Smith, Cowboys. He's in the same class of rings versus money. My thing is, he's never won a ring. He's a Dallas Cowboy that's played only in the last 25 years of the Dallas Cowboys, ergo, never really had a chance to win a ring. And was never going to be close to winning a ring with the Dallas Cowboys. Tyron Smith is a Hall of Fame level player. He's 33 years old. His last 2 years have been marred by health, but this year, no health issues whatsoever. The play was extremely good, and he's going to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer in many people's minds, mine included. So, and the other thing is we're seeing a lot of tackles. Dwayne Brown is a perfect example, where these guys are playing into their late 30s. Jason Peters was playing into his late 30s and still being a functional player. I wouldn't say he's a super functional player now, but a really healthy, good option for a team. And Dallas, I don't think has any way of keeping him to play there unless he just wants to play in Dallas for his entire career. And he's going to take a huge hometown discount to do it. But he has no rings. He's going to go find it. If you're a team like, say, I don't know, that has delusional hope of winning a Super Bowl, such as, I'd say this about a team that has a former Green Bay Packer quarterback, but the Jets, who has no offensive line help. Do you go just hunt and just say, I need to keep my quarterback that's aging upright? Do whatever you have to protect him. Pay Tyron Smith a good amount of money to keep you in that competitive race that you can be in with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback? Good idea. Look at other teams that are in that mix. I know Cincinnati just paid their tackle, but what happens if a little restructuring, a little difference making, and Tyron Smith goes over to Cincinnati? What if they bring him to another fledgling team that needs that help, that could be on the cusp and maybe push themselves over the edge? That's the real question that I have for Tyron Smith. I hope he goes ring hunting because he's a hell of a player who deserves a chance at really winning a Super Bowl. And I don't think Dallas has ever given it to him. But you gotta think about those things. Now we go to some things that I really just wanted to cover, different players. Number 8 to me, it's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. This one, number 1, I think he's a phenomenal player. And he's a difference maker wherever he goes. The one Eagles defender that I actually had a little bit of concern with rooting for the Chiefs in Super Bowl 57 was Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Because he's the only one towards the end of that game where it looked like Kansas City stole the momentum and took that hard out of Philly. He's the only one I went, he could screw this up for them. Because he just has that mentality. And this is more of a personal pick for me, but it's a personal theory I have. I like to call it the bad motherfucker theory. That every team, and specifically every defense, needs that guy on their team that is just a bad motherfucker, who does not care, who is willing to go out, jaw with his opponents, be a physical force, live life right on the edge, and push other teams to the limit. Because it also pushes your own team to the positive limits of just knowing this guy brings the attitude to our team and gives us the confidence we need as a unit to go out and be badasses. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is that guy. Another example for me, it broke my heart when Green Bay traded Rasul Douglas over Buffalo this past year. I'm not saying Rasul Douglas is the greatest secondary player of all time, but Rasul brought that energy to Green Bay, especially with those younger players when they were constantly rotating secondary players. Rasul was a constant for people to go, yo, Rasul's a bad motherfucker, and I know he's got my back, and he brings the confidence to me, and I want to go hit somebody now because of it. Rasul Douglas has that energy. Even more than that, in my opinion, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has that energy, and he will be an instant impact player for whoever signs him. I think it'd be very foolish for Detroit not to sign him back. I did know he had a health injury. He had an injury this year, but he is a phenomenal good player. And it's a mistake to let him go. So if Detroit was smart, they'd re-sign him. But in my mind, if you can go get your hands on a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, he's going to bring an extra wave of energy that you might not have in your room. It's really smart to do. So I wanted to cover that. And yes, you can trademark that, my bad motherfucker theory. Trademark to the ONETA football show. Now, number 9 story on my book right here. It's Frankie Louvu, linebacker for the Carolina Panthers. I wanted to highlight Frankie Louvu because my notes literally say, God damn, he's everywhere. Frankie Louvu is the kind of player that when you watch Carolina, even when their defense was utterly unwatchable in some ways, Frankie Louvu was not. He was an impact player, difference maker, flying around the field, making plays, making life hard for the offense. He just didn't have a unit around him to really make him an impact special player. Frankie Louvu is the kind of player your team wants to sign in free agency. Many times the splash free agent is extremely hit or miss and doesn't pay out. Because they were great in the system that they came from, and they were great in the structure of the first team that they were with that got them to the point where they were going to be a splash free agent, but is not going to be the impact player in your team. There are obviously free agency player acquisitions that work really, really well. But a lot of the splash signings, they don't pan out well. I think Frankie Lou is kind of that middle of the round guy that always generally pans out. Those are the guys that usually make a huge positive impact and take your team forward. I would love for Frankie Louvu to finally get on a good team to allow him to showcase some skill because I think he could be a real asset. Trust me, as a Green Bay Packer fan, I'd be salivating to get Frankie Louvu right now, especially with a linebacking core that doesn't have much in it. But there's a lot of teams. I'd love to see a Frankie Louvu go fly over in Kansas City. I'd like to see Detroit try to take a stab at him. I think that'd be really interesting. Minnesota could use him there. I mean, Chicago, they need more players. Louvu could fly around and bring a lot of energy that they're already trying to build with the big trade they made with Montez Sweat. You have another guy flying around on that second level. It frees up those defensive players even more to just go do their thing. Frankie Louvu is a really good player, and I hope he ends up somewhere well, and I hope he gets paid too. But Carolina would be foolish to let him go, but you got so many deficits. You got to just find a way to keep your quarterback upright and give a chance to even evaluate him. Because at this point, you can't even evaluate Bryce Young because he's on the ground so much because he's getting hit. I want to highlight Frankie Louvu. He's the kind of free agent that usually makes a huge impact on a team, and I really like his play. Finally, this is truly not just a homer pick, even though it is. My note here is for Keyshawn Nixon. It's special teams, motherfucker. It's important. Special teams are important. And the best kick returner in the game right now is the man on screen if you have the video version of this. It's Keyshawn Nixon, the Green Bay Packers. When I look at potential free agents of my home team, that need to be re-signed. My number one concern is Keyshawn Nixon. Not only did he develop as a slot corner, which I really appreciate, but he is a huge dynamic in the return game. Matt LaFleur comes from the San Francisco Kyle Shanahan-esque system, all the way back to Mike Shanahan, where it's just get the ball to the offense, I will structure it and play. And now even Matt LaFleur is just going, I don't care, Keyshawn, take it every time you can. Because he knows how much of a dynamic player he is to where they're going to get better field position, or maybe he's going to break one and he's going to go. Keyshawn Nixon still has that ability, and he has a little bit of that bad motherfucker mentality I was telling you about. I love Keyshawn Nixon as a player, but I'm highlighting him the most because the return game, especially with new rule changes that they're trying to put in to make sure that the kickoff is not just a ceremonial play, the kickoff is an actual impact play in the league. They're trying to make that more of a thing with new rule changes coming. He's going to be even more of a factor. Keyshawn Nixon is a good piece to have. But again, there are 3 phases of football, not 2. Special teams is wildly important with kickers, with punters, with punt returners and kick returners as well. And they're huge just to get the ball back, but then to get the ball back on an impact play or go score on them, they're huge game-swinging changers when you can do that with a great special teams player. And that's why I wanted to highlight a player like Keyshawn Nixon. He can play a role in a good defense, but his greatest asset is obviously in the return game. And that's what got him paid in Green Bay in the first place, and I hope he stays in Green Bay and goes well. But if he doesn't, I hope he goes somewhere where he's going to make an impact, he's going to get paid, and hopefully he can go win a Super Bowl. But obviously, I hope that stays in Green Bay because then we could be closer to winning a Super Bowl. But again, I'm not just here to do homer picks. I'm here to tell you the real stuff. It's not just because he's in green and gold. It's because the return game is wildly important when it can become an impact play for you. Keyshawn Nixon can do that. You want further proof? Kadarius Toney has done nothing in the NFL except one monster game in New York, and then he disappeared for 2 years, and then he came to Kansas City and completely swung a game, in the Super Bowl with the punt returns and the kick returns he had a part of. Kadarius Toney was a huge part of swinging the game from the Eagles to the Chiefs in Super Bowl 57. That's why you need to highlight players like Keyshawn Nixon, because the return game and special teams is so important, and those are great free agency acquisitions when you can get them. So I really wanted to highlight a special teams player, and Keyshawn Nixon, in my mind, was the best player to highlight, as he was also an all-pro returner this year. But that is going to do it today for the ONETA Football Show. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, before you do it, again, let's go through that Etsy shop one last time. Go to ptecreative.etsy.com. Go get yourself some new football merchandise, which you can see on screen right here. Use that promo code BLISS at checkout of any order, 2 items or more. You're going to get 20% off through March 13th. I hope you go and find that and use that code. But even if you can't do that for me, like, comment, subscribe, and keep following for stuff. We're going to get a little bit more active on social media going here. Got some new content coming your way. As always, Monday through Friday. More importantly, football fans, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, wherever you may get it. Share it with your friends, and just enjoy. And I hope you can. It would be amazing if you could do that for me. And also, it's just enjoyable for me to do this, so thank you for watching once again. Peace, love, and hugs. All the best to your team in free agency and draft scouting, and we're going to be here next week with an all free agency team as we move into free agency. Peace, love, and hugs. We're out. We're out.